Alright, your job today in tutorial is going to be to complete the plan and profile. You might have heard it called the PEP, or your personal education plan. Some of you guys may recognize this from previous years where you filled out the same thing, and for others of you, it will be the first time that you're doing this, so you haven't seen it yet. It's very similar to what it was in the past, only it's been shortened and condensed a little bit to make it a little quicker and easier. Another thing that has changed on the back page, you'll be able to look this over each year and edit it and then sign and date it instead of completing a whole new plan every year. It'll be a lot easier for you to see what you wrote in the past and then make adjustments as you go along throughout high school. The most important thing to keep in mind when you're filling this out is that you're going to get out of it whatever you put into it. So if you put a lot of effort into this, it's going to help you to achieve your career and college goals and then goals throughout high school. If you put very little effort into it, then you probably won't get a whole lot out of it. This is part of your senior project, so this is something that Mrs. Milstead will check off when you're a senior, so it's going to be a lot easier for you to just do this as you go along rather than trying to do it at the last minute when you're working on your senior project. So I'll go through this quickly and kind of explain what you'll see here and then answer frequently asked questions. The first thing you want to do is make sure you put your name on there. You don't want to lose this and have to redo the whole thing, so make sure you have your name on there. The first half of the first page just explains the requirements for what is supposed to be in your plan and profile according to the state of Oregon. These aren't questions that you have to answer. This is just a brief overview of what you're going to see in the plan and profile. In the middle of the page, you'll see the instructions. They're pretty simple. The most important part is that you use a pencil. If you use a pencil, you'll be able to erase it and edit it from year to year. If you use a pen, you're going to have to scribble it out, and that's going to make a big mess for you, so make sure you use a pencil. So we'll go through the questions quickly and answer any questions you might have. The first question is asks you to list some career fields that you're currently thinking about. You have space to list 3. List 3 if you can. If you have 4 or 5, list more. List as many as you want. This is really a tool to help you. If you only have 1 or 2, write 1 or 2 right now, and you can always add to it later. The question after that asks what research you have done around your career goal so far. So you'll see a list of things that you can check off what you've done and add under other what maybe you've done that's not listed up here. You'll see the Career Information System is listed. That's Oregon CIS. You might have used that in some of your classes. I know Mr. Drew has mentioned that he uses that in some classes, so it might be familiar to you, or you might not have heard of it yet. You might have worked with previous counselors on this system, and you might work with us in the future using the CIS. So if you used it in the past, you can go ahead and check that. If you haven't used it yet, don't check anything there. There's also a spot you can check the ASVAB if you've researched on the internet, whatever you've done to look at that career. At the bottom, it asks you how will you research your career this year. So what are you going to do between now and the next year when you're updating this to research your careers? You might do a lot of research online or start looking into maybe colleges that you might go to, things like that. The next page starts asking you about what skills you feel like you have. There's a whole list of skills listed up there. You can check off what you think you do well in. You might even think about areas that you want to improve in. You can relate those skills then back to the career that you're thinking about going into. For example, if you're really great at technology, you might think about working with technology or computers or something like that in the future. The next question asks about assessments and tests that you've used to identify your skills, strengths, and aptitudes. So again, the CIS is listed, so you may have done some of that stuff in some classes or with previous counselors. You can check off everything that you've done. Many of you have taken the ASVAB with Mr. Johnson. All the 10th graders and then some 11th graders have taken or even retaken the PSAT. That helps you identify your strengths and your weaknesses and what you need to work on. You might have also taken the SAT or ACT, so you can check any of those. If there's another test that you've taken that's not listed there, you can write that under Other. The next section on this page gives you a spot to write some short-term and long-term goals. You'll see there's personal goals, educational goals, and then career goals. When you're thinking about making goals, you might have heard the term SMART goals before. making them specific, identify exactly what you're going to do, measurable, to say how you're going to measure if you've reached the goal or not, attainable, make sure you're setting a goal that you can actually achieve, something that's realistic, that kind of goes along with attainable, something that you can do in a realistic, time frame, and then timely, making it in that time frame. So you don't have to worry about exactly how you're wording those goals, but remember, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So the more specific you make the goals, the more useful it's going to be for you. For example, an educational goal, maybe a short-term goal, might be maybe you currently have a D in physical science, and your short-term goal might be to raise that to at least a C by the end of the semester. You could write that as a goal, and the way you might achieve it is maybe talking with your teacher or attending tutorial or turning in more of your homework, things like that. That's a more specific goal. After you write your goals, there's a little spot where it asks you what are your current plans for beyond high school. So some of you might be thinking about college, you might be thinking about the military, you might be thinking about just going into a full-time job. You can check any of those boxes that apply to you. If you're trying to decide between some of those, you can check more than one. And remember that you'll get to edit that each year. The next page asks you if you're planning to go to college, what have you done to prepare? So there's a whole list of items that you could do to help you prepare for college. There's definitely more things than are listed there that you could do. So go through that list and check off what you've done so far and start thinking about what you might want to do in the future. For example, you might be a junior and maybe you took the ACT or SAT already, so you could check that off. If you're a junior now and you haven't done that, it's probably a good thing to think about doing in the near future. So right below that it says which of these will you do this year. So for example, that student might list that they need to do the ACT their junior year. You can list anything that's up there or think about something on your own that you think you need to do to start researching colleges. The next question asks, what career-related learning experiences have you participated in so far? That's another part of your senior project, so you're going to want to make sure that you're doing some of these throughout high school. So you might job shadow someone, you might visit a job site, you might do some service learning, maybe like with Mrs. Sturgeon in her class or on your own time outside of school. A thing that a lot of you might have done is to go on some of our college visits that we have. You can check that off. And then some of you are maybe doing work experience now, or you might in the future. So check off the things that you've done, list any other things that you think would apply there under other. Then they ask you to explain what you did and how that relates to your career goal, so you'll answer that question. And then which of these experiences do you plan on doing this year and how will you do them? So think about what you want to do in the future between right now when you're filling this out and next year when you're updating it. And you'll list a couple of those things there. Again, they asked you what your career interest or goal area is, so you list it there. And then when do you plan on completing this experience? So you might do something over the summer, you might write over the summer, or you might plan on doing it next school year or something like that. This next section starts talking about your current high school classes and your plans right now in high school and how that would relate to your career in the future. So right at the top asks you what high school classes have you taken or plan to take that would prepare you for your career. In this little spot here you could list a few specific classes if you know you really want to take them. For example, if you want to be a chef in the future, you might think about taking all of the foods classes, so you might list those there. Maybe if you're in STEM and M, you know what pathway you're in, you might list some of those specific classes up there that you know you definitely want to fit in your schedule at some point. Then the rest of the page gives you space to write all your classes that you've taken each year, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, first and second semester, so you can list the classes that you've done so far and start planning out classes that you want to take in the future. It's especially helpful for those of you that have a few years left. You can start planning out what you want to take and kind of see what you might be able to fit in your schedule and what you might not be able to fit in. If you need a reminder about what the graduation requirements are, they're listed on this next page. Then the essential skills, the smarter balanced and work samples that you guys do, the requirements are also listed here. If you happen to be working on an honors diploma, those requirements are listed for you to review on this page. When you're filling out the last page with your classes And then this page, again, double checking your classes. You might find it useful to use this credit check sheet that you completed about a month ago in tutorial. You should still have that in your folders, or maybe your tutorial teacher still has that for you. You can review that, and that will help you fill out these pages. This next section asks about those essential skills or work samples that you've completed. Some of you seniors may see some of that stuff listed on your transcript, so you could check off that you're done with that. For the rest of you, most of you haven't done these yet, so you don't need to worry about it quite yet. So fill out what you know you have done and leave the rest blank to update it next year. This little box at the bottom gives you a good little check sheet, little grid to help you check off what required classes you have done. So it gives you space for all the English classes. You can mark off, whether you're done or whether maybe you're in them now or you plan to do them in the future. Just double checking to make sure you have enough English, math, science, social studies, PE, health, and then elective credits. At the very bottom gives you a little space to organize those elective credits. So that would be like the arts classes, foods, auto, manufacturing, everything that you're taking outside of these required core classes. Once you have all those spaces filled up, you'll know that you have enough credits, elective credits, to graduate on time. Again, that's the bare minimum, so you can definitely do more than the required electives. The next page gives you space to kind of organize what you've done each year, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. There's space to write your interests and goals that you're exploring that year, space to write what you're involved in as far as student leadership or clubs or athletics, any awards that you got, or maybe a job that you might have. It's really a good idea to list these all here. You'll have them all in one spot. They're very helpful for when you're doing your senior project and later on when you're applying to colleges, and then for scholarships. It's a nice way to organize everything that you've done, so you have a good cheat sheet to go back to brag about all your experiences there. So go ahead and fill that out for each year that you're able to. The last page asks you a summary question. It says, after reviewing your plan and profile, reflect on what you have learned from your experiences and accomplishments. Again, remember, you're going to update that each year, so you might only write a few sentences to leave yourself space for the next couple of years. If you're a senior now, you can obviously use all that space. And then if you run out of space, you have the back of these pages that you can continue your thoughts on. Once you've completed this, you'll write the date that you created it and then sign it, and then leave the space at the bottom for you to update that each year. If you're a senior, obviously, again, you're not going to update it next year, but if you're a junior, you'll update next year. Sophomore, freshman, you'll update this each year. When you're all done, again, make sure your name is on there, and you'll give this back to your tutorial teacher. It will go back in your folders and your crates, and that will be saved for you to be ready for you to use and update next year.